morning. Yo, it was windy. That wind was howling last night. For real? Ooh. Anyway, I wanted to come this morning. My spirit moved me again. And I want to provide just a wee bit of context about the video I posted the other day and really thinking about what is the difference, or is there a difference, between contemplative practices and mindfulness. And here's the quick and dirty from my perspective. And there are a lot of people with their own opinions, but here's mine. So, contemplative practices are practices that we participate in that may lead us to be mindful. Now, that is to say, just because you do a contemplative practice, that you become mindful. What do I mean by that? So, there's a lot of people who go to yoga. And my old baseball coach used to say, "Oh, y'all going through the motions today." There's a lot of people who go to yoga and just go through the motions, but they're not intentional about why they're going to yoga. So, contemplative practices don't necessarily lead to one being mindful. Now, it has a potential to, but again, they don't work. Just because you show up to yoga doesn't all of a sudden make you mindful. Now, contemplative practices, what are they? As I said, they are these practices that allow us to think about the ways to be reflective and that may lead us to be mindful. So, those are kind of your traditional things like yoga. And if I could like have a hand, I would put that in air quotes, quote unquote, traditional. So, yoga, meditation, chanting, singing, dancing. But then there are some other things that we don't necessarily think about as being contemplative practices, but they can be contemplative, such as baking or painting, or joining friends on a camping trip, or going to your grandmother's house for a retreat, or spending, time doing something that brings you joy. If that is, going shopping. Don't shop too much. But you get my point. But there are things that allow us to bring centering to our lives. And those can also include things like prayer or going to a revival service, right? So all those things can be contemplative practices. And we participate them and probably have participated in those in the majority of our life. For instance, a lot of people recall probably when they were playing outside when they were young and their parents or loved one told them be inside before the street light comes on. Like that street light was a contemplative practice because it was like, well, the street light is coming on, I should probably go in the house. So it made you mindful about what time it was and when you needed to be in the house, right? So contemplative practices are instruments that can be used to help one to become mindful, in my opinion. And again, those contemplative practices come in a multitude of works. But again, just because you participate in a contemplative practice doesn't necessarily make you more mindful. And we'll talk about that on another video. But top of the morning.